evergreen tree whispers beneath the redwood sky. The Northern California coast wore a robe of fog that morning, its mist hugging the winding roads like a secret kept too long. As Evelyn drove into the small town of Crescent Hollow, the redwoods on either side of her seemed to whisper stories of the past, their towering silhouettes etched against the dim light of dawn. She hadn't been back in years, not since her father's funeral. Life in Chicago had swallowed her whole, deadlines, subway screeches, and crowded coffee shops. But when she received a letter, handwritten, with no return address, everything changed. It said only this: the cabin still remembers you. So do I. She knew who had written it. She didn't need a name. The cabin sat at the edge of a clearing, its wood weathered, the swing on the porch swaying gently though there was no wind. Her heart beat with memories, summers spent building forts in the forest, evenings roasting marshmallows by the fire, and her 17th birthday. When she had kissed Luca under a meteor-streaked sky and promised she'd never forget him. But she had. Or at least, she tried. The cabin door creaked open, and dust rose in spirals. Everything was exactly as they had left it. The map of the stars they made still hung above the mantel. A faded Polaroid of them at the county fair was tucked into a crack in the wall. Evelyn sat on the wooden bench outside, knees to chest, the letter crumpled in her palm. She stayed there until the sun broke through the trees, casting golden shafts through the fog. And then she heard footsteps. "Didn't think you'd come," Luca said, his voice older, deeper. She turned. He wore a worn flannel shirt, jeans stained with forest mud, and eyes that hadn't changed, soft, green, stormy. "I almost didn't," she replied. They stood in silence, two hearts standing on either side of a chasm built by years. "I kept waiting," he said. "For a letter. A call. Anything. I was afraid," she admitted. "Afraid you moved on. That I wasn't what you needed anymore." "You always were," Luca whispered. Over the next few days, Evelyn settled into a rhythm. She cooked in the old iron skillet, fixed the broken railing on the porch, and relearned the silence of the forest. Luca came by every morning. Sometimes with eggs. Sometimes with fresh-cut wood. Once, with a puppy he claimed had followed him home. They named her Clover. The three of them hiked the cliffs, watched seals sunbathe on rocks, and listened to the hush of the ocean curling over itself. One night, as they built a fire outside the cabin, Luca handed her a notebook. Inside were poems, some rough, some beautiful, all written to her. "I wrote one every month since you left," he said, his voice barely audible over the crackle of flames. "I thought if I stopped, I'd lose you completely." Tears filled her eyes. "I never stopped thinking about you, Luca. But I buried it. I thought love had an expiration date." "It doesn't," he said. "It only waits." The next morning, Evelyn woke to find a path of flower petals leading into the woods. She followed it until she reached the old treehouse they had built as kids. It was decorated now with fairy lights, a makeshift chandelier of seashells, and a small table set for two. Luca stood at the center, holding something behind his back. "This is where we first dreamed," he said. "Of adventures. Of New York. Of stars." She nodded. "I don't need the city," he continued. "I just need the girl who made me believe in more than the horizon." He stepped forward and opened a small wooden box. Inside was a ring, simple, silver, and etched with constellations. "You don't have to answer today," Luca said. "But I needed you to know that my heart never left this forest." "It never left you." Evelyn's voice trembled. "And mine's been trying to find its way back." They didn't need music to dance. Just the chirp of crickets and the distant crash of waves. As they swayed beneath the redwoods, it felt like time had circled back, like 17 never ended. She didn't say yes that night. But she didn't say no. She stayed. A month later, they hosted a small gathering. Just the town folks, a few out-of-towners, and the woman from the bakery who cried when Evelyn ordered Luca's favorite pie. Beneath an archway of wildflowers, Luca read one of his poems. And Evelyn whispered her answer before the last line. Yes. Evergreen tree. Now the cabin doesn't just remember Evelyn, it sings with new laughter, shared mornings, and love that returned with the mist. If this story warmed your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Whispers of Love. 2 hearts. Sparkles. Comment below, have you ever returned to someone or someplace that once held your heart? Let us know your story beneath the redwood sky. Evergreen tree. Sparkles.